Look at your wrist. Look at your phone. Look at the top corner of your computer screen. Right now, a number is ruling your life. It tells you when you are allowed to be hungry. It tells you when you're allowed to close your eyes. It tells you exactly how many minutes you have left to finish a task before you are considered late. We treat time like it is a fundamental law of physics, like gravity or electromagnetism. But it isn't. The minutes, the hours, the strict 9 to 5 schedules. These are all artificial. They are pieces of software we installed into the human brain a few centuries ago. And before we installed that software, humans lived in a completely different reality. For 99% of human history, time wasn't a cage. It was a landscape. Then we invented the mechanical clock. And in doing so, we accidentally built the most efficient prison in human history. We didn't just learn how to measure time, we let time conquer us. Before the clock, human time was organic. It was tied to the earth, the sun, and the biological rhythms of our own bodies. This is what historians call task-oriented time. If you were a farmer in ancient Europe or a hunter in Africa, your day didn't start because an alarm went off at 6 a.m. Your day started because the light shifted. You didn't harvest wheat for exactly 8 hours. You harvested wheat until the field was done, or until the sun went down, or until your back told you it was time to stop. Time was flexible. It expanded and contracted. In ancient Rome and Egypt, they used sundials and water clocks. But they did something fascinating. They divided the daylight into 12 hours, regardless of the season. This meant that an hour in the summer was roughly 75 minutes long because the days were long. An hour in the winter was only 44 minutes long. Think about that. The ancient Romans literally let their hours stretch and shrink to match the mood of the earth. Imagine trying that with your boss today. Sorry I'm late, it's January. My hours are currently operating at a 30% compression rate. You'd be fired before you finish the sentence. Back then, if you asked someone when you should meet, they wouldn't say, "Let's do lunch at 12:45. They would say, "Let's meet when the shadows stretch past the well," or "when the cows come back from the river." It was a world where humans were the main characters and time was just the background scenery. So, what changed? Ironically, we can blame people who were just trying to pray. In the medieval era, Christian monks needed to perform specific prayers at exact moments throughout the night and day to keep their vows. If you're a monk sleeping in a dark stone monastery in the dead of winter, you can't look at a sundial. You need something that makes a noise. So, in the 13th and 14th centuries, European inventors created the first weight-driven mechanical clocks. They didn't even have faces or hands. They just struck a bell. In fact, the word clock comes from the medieval Latin word clocca, which literally means bell. At first, this was fine. The clock lived in the church tower. It told the town when to pray or when the market opened. But then came the 18th century, steam power, and the Industrial Revolution. And that is where the tragedy truly begins. Factories arose, and factory owners realized something dangerous. If you pay a worker based on the task they complete, they might work at their own pace. They might take a nap when they're tired. But if you buy a giant mechanical clock, hang it over the factory floor, and pay them by the hour, you suddenly own their existence. For the first time, time became synchronized. It became standardized. In 1884, world leaders sat in a room and divided the entire planet into neat, artificial time zones. We took a chaotic, beautiful, rotating sphere of life and boxed it into 24 identical vertical lines. We stopped listening to the sun, and we started listening to the gears. The moment time became standardized, human psychology fractured. We stopped living in time and started living against it. We invented a whole new vocabulary of anxiety. Suddenly, you could waste time. You could lose time. You could run out of time. Consider the absolute psychological horror of the modern alarm clock. Every single morning, millions of highly evolved mammals are ripped from their natural biological sleep cycles by a synthetic screeching sound, specifically designed to trigger a fight or flight adrenaline rush. We do this to ourselves daily, voluntarily, just so we can sit in traffic at an artificially designated coordinate of the morning. We have effectively turned waking up into a minor medical emergency. Because of the clock, we have separated our bodies from our environment. If you wake up at 2 a.m. and your body feels completely alive, vibrant, and ready to create, the clock looks down at you and says, "No, you are violating the schedule. Go back to sleep." If you're sitting at a desk at 2 p.m., your eyes are heavy, your brain is entirely empty, and your biology is begging for a 20-minute rest, the clock says, "No, you have 3 hours remaining of mandatory productivity. Consume liquid caffeine and pretend to be a functioning machine." We have trained ourselves to ignore the internal wisdom of our own cells in order to satisfy the rigid movement of a tiny metal hand. But the worst thing the clock did wasn't making us work harder. The worst thing it did was ruin our relationship with the present moment. When time is an endless, ticking line of identical seconds, it creates the illusion of scarcity. We look at the clock and we feel a constant low-humming panic. I'm getting older. I'm running out of hours. We have become obsessed with efficiency. We download productivity apps to save 5 minutes on our emails. We listen to podcasts at twice the speed so we can consume more information. We multitask during dinner. But have you ever noticed that the more you try to save time, the poorer you feel? When you slice time into microscopic, measurable pieces, you can't deeply listen to a friend or stare at a sunset, or just sit quietly on a porch without a small voice in the back of your head whispering, "It is 4:15 p.m. You should be doing something else." The clock has turned us into time travelers, but in the worst way possible. We are constantly living 5 minutes in the future, planning the next task, or 3 hours in the past, regretting a missed deadline. We are rarely right here. We cannot smash all the clocks. We live in an interconnected global world. We need synchronized time to land airplanes, to run hospitals, and to meet the people we love. The clock is a tool that allowed modern civilization to exist. But there is a massive difference between using a tool and letting the tool own your soul. Every once in a while, we need to remember what it feels like to live in task time. The next time you have a day off, try an experiment. Hide your watch. Turn off your phone. Don't look at a screen. Let your body decide when it is hungry. Let your eyes decide when they want to look at the sky. Walk outside and don't track your steps. Don't time your run. Just walk until your legs feel like turning around. For just a few hours, step out of the grid. Let your hours expand and contract like they did in ancient Rome. Because your life isn't a collection of seconds to be managed, measured, and spent. Your life is the space between those seconds. For nearly 300,000 years, humans walked this earth without a single tick or tock. They knew exactly who they were, and they knew exactly when they were. They didn't need a dial to tell them they were alive. Maybe it's time we remembered how to live in the shadows again.